What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC 276. We have Israel Adesanya going against Jared Cannonier. Very fun main event and a very fun 12-fight card. Cannot wait to get into it here. As always, I'm here with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to this main event?
The main event, the co-main event, and every other fight on the card. I mean, pretty much from top to bottom. I mean, even right off the bat, the curtain jerker, we get the Lithuanian Ronda Rousey, and then it just rolls from there, dude. So, great way to end off this card. I think I'd rather see Volkanovski Holloway as the main event, but Izzy's always fun to watch. Two really high level strikers. Let's chop it up, man. This is a beauty.
Yes, sir. Cannot wait to get into it. Yeah, like you said, great card. Pretty much every single fight I'm looking forward to. So yeah, can't wait to break it down with you, man. Shout out the chat before we get started, and also if you guys can please leave a like, also subscribe if you haven't. You guys have been killing it with the likes, with the subscriptions. We are now at 1,087, so we're keep growing the channel. That's the goal, and we do appreciate all the support from you guys out there, week in and week out. We got Mushroom first one in the chat saying, "What's up, Brady and Weezy? 5 more sleeps until violence. Let's fucking go." I agree. Mushroom looking for some violence. We got Lou Betch in the chat saying, "This show should be extra insightful now that Brady is old." Yes, I am officially old. That is true. Brandon saying, "Let's go," leaning towards the fight. Doesn't go to decision right now. I see both coming out trying to finish one or another. Yeah, that's something we'll talk about. I feel like if Adesanya wants to finish this fight, and in most fights, I feel like he could. It's just sometimes he does kind of just play on the outside, play the point game, and win decisions there. So kind of makes that tough from that aspect. Brian liking that under 4.5. We got Victor in the chat. What is up, Victor? How you doing? JP as well. I say we get into it. And guys, as always, we'll start with the tail of the tape. We have Adesanya, 32 years old, 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, going against Cannonier, 38 years old, 5'11" with a 77-inch reach. Adesanya is going to be 6 years younger. Adesanya is going to have a 5-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well, which is pretty interesting considering, Jared Cannonier has fought at heavyweight before, but it's going to be Adesanya with a pretty big size advantage here and the younger fighter as well. Adesanya is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, had that decision win against Yoel Romero, a knockout win against Paulo Costa, a decision loss against Jan Blachowicz, a decision win against Marvin Vettori, and then a decision win against Robert Whittaker. As far as Cannonier, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Anderson Silva, a knockout win against Jack Hermanson, a decision loss against Robert Whittaker, a decision win against Kelvin Gastelum, and then a knockout win against Derek Brunson. So, Weezy, tell the tape first. Is there anything sticking out to you besides the age, the height, and the reach?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff sticks out. Both of these guys are switch stance fighters, and you really do like to chase the switch stance side because they are statistically significantly winning at a much higher rate than any other stylistic matchup, orthodox versus southpaw, whatever. So but yeah, Adesanya is much taller, 3-inch reach advantage, 6 years younger. So obviously those are all categories that are statistically significant in predicting wins. So we like everything that we're seeing right there. And then when you go down to the experience, you see Adesanya 3 more fights, over 110 more minutes in the pro cage, about 80 more minutes in the UFC cage. So he's got a nice little experience advantage here over Cannonier, but not a massive one. And then in addition to that, we also know that Adesanya had a really high-level kickboxing career prior to mixed martial arts. So this guy's been doing it for a very long time, and he is at the top for a reason. And that reason is his elite striking.
Yep, absolutely. His striking is definitely off the charts there. So let's get into the finish stats a little bit, the experience stats a little bit, Weezy. Is there anything really sticking out to you in those?
Yeah, so, Adesanya and Cannonier are both guys who are primarily only getting the job done by knockout. Cannonier actually does have 2 wins by submission in his career, but, Adesanya's finishes are all knockouts, and all but 2 of Cannonier's finishes are knockouts. So, 10 of the 15 wins for Cannonier by knockout, 2 by submission, and 3 by decision. So, and both of these guys are good finishers, 68% for Adesanya, 80% for Cannonier, but it's Cannonier who's finishing at a much higher rate at the UFC level, as he's finishing 3/4 of his wins. For Adesanya, it's 36%, so only 4 out of 11 wins for Adesanya inside the distance. And Adesanya in 1 loss has never been finished. That was a 5-round fight up a weight class. And Jared Cannonier, knocked out twice in 5 career losses, and both of those were at the UFC level. So, yeah, I mean, I'm giving the durability advantage to Adesanya simply because he's never been finished and Cannonier has. And in addition to that, I would say that Cannonier is probably the better finisher overall because at least he does have a submission. But what's funny is that Jared Cannonier has actually never attempted a submission at the UFC level. It's actually Adesanya who has some submission attempts, as he's attempting 0.21 submissions per 15 minutes. So, yeah, the finish stats edge Cannonier, and the durability stats edge Adesanya. So overall, I think it's very close with those particular stats.
Yeah, and we see that Jared Cannonier has been, like you said, knocked out twice. The one knockout loss was against Dominic Reyes back in 2018 at light and heavyweight, and then his first knockout loss was against Sean Jordan back in 2015, and that was at heavyweight. So Cannonier has never been knocked out at middleweight, for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, people in the chat are excited about these unders and these fight doesn't go. It's kind of tricky because I think if Jared Cannonier wins this fight, it's going to be by knockout. I'd be shocked if Jared Cannonier went out there and outstruck Adesanya and won a decision. I think if Cannonier does win, it's by knockout there. On the flip side, if Adesanya does win, I don't know. Do you think he could? I think he could. But like I said earlier, like sometimes Adesanya is just content to kind of stay safe, stay on the outside, and pick apart Cannonier, and I feel like that's on the table as well. But if he really goes after it, I feel like Adesanya could finish him. So I think the finish stats, I think the fight goes, the fight doesn't go is really tricky this week. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is tricky because, we've seen Cannonier never be finished, outside of the heavyweight division. We've seen Israel Adesanya go up a weight class against Jan Blachowicz, wind up underneath that man for a good period of the fight and not give up, not get finished. So, my lean originally is for the fight goes to decision because, both of these guys are tough, but we've seen Cannonier in trouble. If you watch the Whitaker fight, he got caught with that 1-2 head kick combination that Whitaker throws so effectively, and it looked like he was close to getting him out of there. But, Cannonier did a good job of kind of getting an overhook, bringing Whitaker on top of him, holding him close there for about 20 seconds, clearing his head, getting back to his feet. And then in the last minute and a half, he winds up landing a big shot and getting Whitaker in a little bit of trouble there. So, I think they're both durable, but the one thing that bothers me about this fight, Brady, about it finishing inside the distance is the fact that neither one of these dudes grapples. And that's what you'd like to see if you want to see somebody getting a little bit tired out, somebody's gas tank getting really close to empty, and then that big shot kind of finishing them off because both of these guys are pretty good at keeping range, and they both are fairly risk averse, in my opinion. So, especially Adesanya when he's comfortable. So, yeah, I'm actually leaning fight goes so far.
Yeah, it's like a coin flip for me. But we'll talk about the line towards the end. Brandon brings up an interesting point here, saying Jared's only way is to pressure him, which I agree. I mean, Jared's not going to want to stick on the outside and kickbox with Adesanya for 25 minutes. He's saying the whole fight I can see is he knocking him out the way he knocked out Costa. Yeah, I mean, if Cannonier pressures and tries to search for that finish, I mean, that could open up a lot of opportunities for Adesanya. Dan saying, I mean, Brunson cracked Jared. Yes, he did. I think that part of the fight gets Dana White washed because he won. Yep. And then Jester in the chat saying, oi. And then Quaver saying that fight goes. Let's talk about these striking stats, Weezy, because like you said earlier, I'd be shocked if either guy went for a takedown here. I think this plays on the feet every single second of this fight.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen so far, and let's just talk about the grappling stats real quick as a way to highlight how important the striking stats are. Israel Adesanya in 12 fights has only attempted 3 takedowns. He's got 0. Jared Cannonier in 13 UFC fights has only attempted 4 takedowns. He's gotten 2 of them. So Jared Cannonier has spent less than 5% of his 131 minutes in the UFC cage controlling his opponents. That's less than 6.5 minutes. Israel Adesanya has spent less than 2% of his 211 minutes in the UFC cage controlling his opponents. So neither one of these guys is getting any control time. Neither one of these guys is even looking for control time. If we were to have a fun little stat here, we can add up their UFC cage time, which is about 342 minutes. And in those 342 minutes, we've seen these guys attempt a total of 7 takedowns. I mean, like, that's one every 50 minutes. So even in a 25-minute fight, there's probably only a 50% chance that even somebody shoots a takedown, much less gets one. So if that's the case, if that's what we're planning on seeing for this fight, we should be seeing these guys on the feet at striking range 95% of the fight. So what we're seeing on the aggregate, and we've got a 211-minute sample size for Adesanya and 131-minute sample size for Cannonier, is that Adesanya throws exactly one more significant strike attempt per minute than his opponents do, and he lands 1.28 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do. Jared Cannonier is throwing 1.55 less significant strike attempts than his opponents do, and he lands about 0.45 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do. So they both have good strike ratios, but Adesanya's is better, and Adesanya is out-voluming his opponents while Cannonier is getting out-volumed. In addition to that, Israel Adesanya's knockdown numbers are better here, as he's landed 12 knockdowns in 12 fights. So serious power numbers there for Israel. Jared Cannonier has landed 5 knockdowns in 13 fights. So even though, like, Jared's a guy that's known for his power, it's actually Israel who's dropping dudes at a much higher rate. And then if we look at the knockdowns per 15 minutes, we can see how that, translates. 0.85 for Adesanya, 0.57 for Cannonier. Adesanya, in addition to that, in 12 fights, he's got 12 knockdowns and he's absorbed 0. While Cannonier, has 5 knockdowns and he's absorbed 5. So when you look at the aggregate numbers, you can see a guy in Adesanya who's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage and a 5-inch height advantage, who fights out of both stances, who's very comfortable at distance, and who's very good at keeping his fights at distance. And we can also look over on the other side of the octagon and see a guy in Cannonier who's not interested in grappling. So if Cannonier wants to win this fight, he's going to have to do it at distance. Either that or show us a new side of him that we haven't seen yet in 13 UFC fights and 131 minutes in the UFC cage. So how does he do it, Brady? How does he win minutes here? Does he land a big shot? Is he the first guy to knock down Israel Adesanya in the UFC cage in over 200 minutes of cage time for Adesanya? The likelihood of that is not very good.
Yeah, and I think he might have to be the first one to knock him down or knock him out because, like you said, man, I mean, typically when you're looking at an Adesanya fight, especially his last couple fights against Robert Whittaker, he had to worry about those takedowns. I mean, Whittaker took him down 4 times against Marvin Vettori. He had to worry about those takedowns. Vettori took him down 4 times, and in that fight, Vettori attempted 14 takedowns. Let's see, Robert Whittaker attempted 10 takedowns. The fight prior to that against Jan Blachowicz, a light heavyweight, Jan Blachowicz took him down 3 times, attempted 5 takedowns. So this is a fight where he's actually not going to have to worry about the takedown. So, it seems like a tough matchup for Cannonier here, and we see that the line does definitely indicate that. But this is a fight. Cannonier does have power. It's just he's going to be at a big size disadvantage. I think the length is really going to give Cannonier problems. And on top of that, we're in the big cage as well, which I don't like that for Cannonier. So I think he's going to have to land that big shot. If not, I just see him getting picked apart. So, and we could talk about the grappling stats, like you said, Weezy, but there's nothing to talk about. I mean, if there's a takedown attempt in this fight, like, I don't even know who it would be from. I'd be shocked if there's even one from either side here.
It just kind of feels like if somebody's shooting a takedown, they just got clocked, and then you just start panic wrestling. And, I don't know. You'd have to really kind of think, like, when was the last time? Because Israel Adesanya has attempted 3 takedowns. When the fuck did that happen? I missed that. I've never seen this dude shoot a takedown, and Cannonier actually has 2, but, we're not really seeing him go for it. And less than 5% control time. I'm sure a good chunk of that 5% is like cage control time too. Probably very little in terms of top control time for him. So yeah, it's interesting because I think we've both seen Cannonier and Adesanya face a ton of takedown attempts. Adesanya's faced 81 in 12 fights. Cannonier's faced 58 in 13 fights. And we've seen Cannonier lately, especially in that Brunson fight, show, hey, at 185, you're not getting me down. And if you can't get me down, you have to deal with my leg kicks, my pressure, my power, good conditioning too for Jared Cannonier. He can push a pace late into the third round, and that's been working for him when he's been fighting guys like Brunson and Gastelum and Hermanson and an old Anderson Silva, because Silva's like the best striker that he's seen outside of Robert Whitaker. But we saw Whitaker kind of do what we were kind of projecting Israel Adesanya to do, which is to throw more volume, to land more strikes, and to kind of make it look easy and just cruise for the full 3 or 4, in this case, 5 rounds to a decision. So that's kind of the way that I see this fight going, because I don't see Jared being able to offer enough in the grappling in order to make Israel uncomfortable enough that he's going to be able to overcome that 5-inch height disadvantage, the 3-inch reach disadvantage, the speed disadvantage, the footwork disadvantage. And while we're at it, how about the power disadvantage? The fact that this guy has 12 knockdowns and is absorbed 0. So how does Jared make this fight, uncomfortable for Israel? It's gonna be Jared's gonna have to make himself uncomfortable and put himself into situations that he hasn't been willing to put himself into thus far. So it's hard to picture this going any other way, but Israel just kind of cruising to a decision here.
Yeah, and like you said, is Cannonier going to stick on the outside and get picked apart, or is he going to go on the inside and get countered hard and maybe even put out? So, yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Cannonier. Jester saying, is this the first Cannonier in a 5-rounder? No, he did go 5 rounds with who was it? It was Gastelum.
Gastelum.
Yeah, Gastelum, and he won that fight. I thought his cardio held up. It held up a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, he's in great shape, dude. I mean, that dude, he looks like a statue, and he's got serious power, great conditioning. He's a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. And, we even saw him against Ion Cutelaba, face a lot of takedown attempts, get taken down, and then him just getting back up, wearing on his opponent, making him empty that gas tank and frustrating him by not settling on the ground when he gets taken down. And I think that's Jared's best quality, is tiring out those grapplers who want to grapple him and then using the striking when it stands up. But Israel's not going to try to grapple him. And he's going to be the taller guy. He's going to be the faster guy. He's going to be the longer guy. And he's going to be the guy that manages distance better. So it's a tough matchup for Jared here.
Yeah, Dan saying, I bet Izzy by sub every fight at 26-1. And up and now, this fight, I'm only getting 12-1. Shame. Izzy always states he wants one, and if he drops in Turtles Jared, the neck is in play. Yeah, somebody under the Stat Diggers video, like Max bet the submission prop. I mean, I don't see it personally, but this is MMA. Anything could really happen.
Yeah, and Israel actually has attempted submissions, so that's actually kind of weird, I mean, I didn't know that he had even attempted them, but yeah, he's never gotten one in his career. And Jared Cannonier in 20 pro fights has never been subbed either. So, I don't know what you're looking at if you're betting that by, Israel Adesanya to win by sub. I mean, it's not like a serious bet. I don't know what to tell you about that one, but I don't think it's happening. But it's a fight. It's a fight. Yeah. So we put out the joke bet that Jiri Prochaska by sub in round 5 at plus 6,000 as a joke, because we thought there's no way in hell this hits. But that's the sport we're betting. Anything can happen. But as a guy who's looking at the data from the past to help us guide our future decisions, I just can't get to an Israel Adesanya by submission bet ever.
Yeah, Adesanya had 2 submission attempts against Kelvin Gastelum in the 5th round, and then 1 against Brad Tavares as well. So those are his submission attempts there. See if I missed anything else in the chat. We got Mushroom saying smash the like button. I agree. We're all saying Izzy by TKO KO sub. So Izzy inside the distance. Fireside saying Cannonier strength from being a previously massive human could come into effect here. The blueprint is laid out by Jan Cannonier. Just has to follow it. Yeah, I think that's the problem there. Cannonier, that's just not his game.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Jan has got to be bigger than 5'11" with a 77-inch reach too. I think that's that. I think that was the difference, is that you're going to be kickboxing a dude like Jan and Israel. Yeah, Israel's going to have better footwork. He's going to be faster than him, almost longer than him too. But at least if Jan is big, if he's walking in that cage at 230, while Israel Adesanya is weighing in with a pizza at 202, that makes a difference. But I don't think that there's going to be that big of a size difference here between Cannonier and Adesanya. And I mean, Adesanya, while Cannonier is going to be the bigger, more muscular dude, it's going to be Adesanya. It's much taller and much longer.
If Cannonier wins, it's by wrestling and decision and Sal D'Amato. If it goes to decision, like, anything can happen to these judges, man. Victor saying, I already have Adesanya by KO or decision in 3 parlays. Yeah, I talked about that last night. The Adesanya money line's like minus 440, but the Adesanya KO or decision is like minus 260. I will probably play a small hedge with Cannonier by KO because I feel he has the power to put anybody out, but I think Adesanya's got this. Whoever max bet the sub prop has yam bags the size of watermelons. Absolutely. Brian saying Izzy by KO plus 210. And then, yeah, we'll talk about some of these prop leads because I was looking through them and not a ton really sticking out. Let's talk about the money line first off. So Adesanya opened up minus 300. It's been nothing but Adesanya love. Currently minus 410. Jared Cannonier opened up plus 250. He's currently plus 310. The best line out there on Adesanya is on DraftKings at minus 365. The worst line out there is minus 455. The best line out there on Cannonier is sitting at plus 350, and the worst line sitting out there is around plus 296. So, yeah, very light line. We have Adesanya around that minus 400 mark, and it's just hard to get there, for anybody, really. I mean, I don't want to be laying minus 400 for anybody, but it is really hard to see Cannonier winning this fight.
Yeah, and I mean, me, Brady. I don't weigh minus 400. I mean, you have to be 100% sure, and you can never be 100% sure of anything in MMA. So, yeah, you want to start looking for like those bets that Victor just talked about. Take these guys' best win condition. Try to, if you feel that that's a big part of their win potential, then bet that. If it feels like it's a better percentage than what you're paying in the odds. So, yeah. Israel Adesanya by KO or decision. Israel Adesanya rounds 4 or 5 or decision. Or if you really do feel that Israel is going to knock this dude out, then just Israel by KO, or Israel inside the distance, which probably wouldn't be much more expensive. But yeah, I would think Israel by decision. If you put a gun to my head and said you had to play a prop here, that's probably what I'm playing, and I like it at plus money. But I just feel like those last couple rounds are going to be a sweat, man, because we don't know what Cannonier is going to look like in rounds 4 or 5 against a striker of Adesanya's quality. Let's not forget that the guy that Cannonier went 5 rounds with, Kelvin Gastelum also went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. And dude, didn't he get knocked down 5 times in that fight?
Yeah, it was 4 or 5. It might have been 5 though.
It might have been 4 or 5 knockdowns. I think 3 of them were in the 4th round. That's when Izzy was like, really doing that work. And boy, man, if I had that Israel by decision ticket and I'm sitting there in the 4th or the 5th and he's landing some shots on the tired Jared Cannonier, man, my sphincter would be getting real small and real tight. So, yeah, probably Israel by decision would be the way that I would play it. Or if you can get 4 or 5 decision on FanDuel better than like minus 125, I think maybe that would be the best way to go.
It looks like they fixed the Adesanya by KO points. Last night it was like minus 240, minus 260. It's now minus 340. So they fixed that there overnight. Let's take a look at that 4 or 5 decision. So the 4 or 5 decision for Adesanya is, oh God, minus 150.
Yeah. God, I mean, I'm not even willing to lay minus 150 on Jessica Rose Clark this week. And I think if she's fighting Julia Stoliarenko, and I'm sitting here going, man, that armbar, Jessica puts her in bad spots, and I'm supposed to be that much more confident that, Adesanya is going to go through a quality fighter like Jared Cannonier, like a hot knife through butter, when he's spent, like, for instance, how much more dangerous is Yoel Romero on the feet than Jared Cannonier? Like, right? Not like this massive gap, right? So what if Israel is just like, I'm going to stay safe and I'm going to tap his calf 5 times around and just maintain distance. It could absolutely happen. And then you're going to be shit out of luck on your KO prop if that's how Adesanya chooses to fight this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to how Cannonier fights this fight. If he's going to pressure, I think then it could definitely lead towards a finish on either side. If he kind of wants to kickbox with Adesanya, stay on the outside with him for 25 minutes, Adesanya very well could outpoint him. And yeah, the Adesanya Romero fight, Adesanya lands 48 strikes in 25 minutes, and then Romero lands freaking 40 strikes. So I mean, I don't know. I don't. If Cannonier did that, I'd be kind of shocked, but you never know. Let's take a look at some other props here. The over-under set at 4.5 rounds. The over 4.5 minus 115. Under 4.5 rounds minus 115. The fight goes to decision minus 110. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 120. The fight ends in KO is plus 120, so a little bit better there. Yeah, like I said, I just don't have a strong read on this fight goes or doesn't go here.
Yeah, so I think I gave you those 5-round numbers a while back, Brady, and 185-pound fights for 3-round fights are finishing at 55.46%. Now, if we move it up to a 5-round fight, we're going to expect that finish rate goes up, but it doesn't go up much. 57 fights, 34 finishes, that's 59.7. So we're right at 60%. So basically, a minus 150 line is what you should be paying for fight doesn't go to decision. Fight doesn't go to decision. You're getting much better than minus 150. You're getting actually 40, or I'm sorry, you're not getting that because I'm on Duplessis Tavares. What's the fight doesn't go?
The fight doesn't go is sitting at minus 110.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a break here. You're paying 52.38% for fight doesn't go, but these fights are finishing at 59.7%. So that is, a 7.4% break over the divisional finish rate for 5-round fights at the 185-pound division. In addition to that, these guys are finishing inside the distance just around 50% of the time, too, at 12 out of 25. It's 4 out of 12 for Adesanya, and it's 8 out of 13 for Cannonier. And Cannonier has only been 5 rounds once before. So, if you're on that fight doesn't go side, I'm personally on the fight goes side. But there's good reasoning right in there within the numbers to take the fight doesn't go if that's how you see the fight going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of on the fence either side. I feel like it could finish, but I could see it going to decision. So probably not going to have a bet either way. Adesanya to win by KO is plus 210 on FanDuel. That was plus 240. Adesanya by decision looks like best price is around plus 125. Cannonier by knockout, which I feel like that's his best path to victory, is plus 550. Adesanya by submission. I know some people are max betting that this week. That's plus 1,600. Yeah, I don't know, Weezy. Nothing's really sticking out for me for any of these props.
Yeah, me neither, man. This is a fight that's kind of the line has gotten blown out, so the value is going to be on the Cannonier props. I mean, if Cannonier wins this fight and you pick the right way, that's a lottery ticket. But when you try to take these minus 400 favorites, like for instance, last week, Umar Nurmagomedov. You're thinking this guy's going to go through Nate Maness like a hot knife through butter, and he tortures Nate on the ground for 15 minutes. But Nate's got no quit in him. He's a tough dude. So that fight wound up going to decision. But like these guys who were on Umar, what was Umar inside the distance? Dude, you were paying juice for it, right?
Like minus 175, something like that.
See, you can't, dude, in the long run, you can't be making those kind of bets. You can't be betting these minus 400, minus 500 favorites and saying, I'm either taking the decision prop or the inside the distance prop because, boy, do you have to be precise. And then now we've got this judging thing, where it's like, how many times have we heard people say, oh, they're judging on damage now? And then last week happens and they're clearly not judging on damage. There were 3 fights that could have went the other way if they were actually judging on damage. So why don't we just admit that we don't know what the fuck the judges are judging on, that they're corrupt, that they're incompetent, that they suck, so that if a fighter is minus 400 and we have to pick decision or inside the distance, and we're on that decision side. Now, not only do we have to get the fight right, but we've got to worry about the judges not being paid off to pick it to go the other way. So let's just stay away from picking props on favorites that are minus 500 and know that we'll be making solid long-term decisions if we do that.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I'm probably not going to have a bet on the main event. I mean, if anything, it would be Adesanya as a parlay piece, but what am I going to parlay with this week? I mean, nothing's really sticking out. I don't think there's many parlay pieces on the card. Like, do I want to parlay up Andre Muniz minus 270? No. Do I want to parlay Jim Miller at minus 220? No, I don't. Do I want to parlay Volkanovski and what should be a close fight? No, I don't. Do I want to parlay Sean O'Malley? No, I don't. So, I mean, if anything, it's Adesanya as a parlay piece, but nothing to really parlay with this week.
God, I mean, and even sometimes you can usually find one of those fight doesn't go or one of those fight goes that's sitting around minus 250, minus 300. And you're like, oh, there's no way that this one isn't going exactly that way. And you can throw it in a parlay. But yeah, parlays this week are going to be greasy, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're parlaying up Jim Miller's 38. Jim Miller was getting tagged up by the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez. You know, Jim Miller was losing some minutes to some guys like Mata and Gonzalez, you know, that are, you know, not great UFC fighters. So, you know, and now you're just saying he's going to go out there and start Cerrone because Cerrone's making bad movies and looks ashy. You know, I mean, that's not a good reason to lay minus 200. I mean, well, I mean, yeah, you want to bet against the ashy guy more often than not. But still, it's not a great reason to lay minus 200. Yeah, this is a tough one, dude. This is a tough one to bet.
Super tough, man. Let's take a look at the strength of schedule, and then we'll give our final picks and our best bet, which I don't even know what I'm going to do for my best bet. Maybe I'll think about it the next couple of minutes. But what is sticking out for you in the strength of schedule? Obviously, both guys have fought some really good competition, but that Adesanya ratio is really sticking out.
Yeah, 2.84, you know, so the combined records of the guys that Adesanya has faced at the UFC level are 125 wins and 44 losses. That's really impressive. 14.08 total fights and a 2.84 win-to-loss ratio. Now, Cannonier's fighting studs too. Whenever your ratio is over 2 and your total fights is over 10, it means you're fighting guys with 2 wins for every loss, and that usually means that their record's somewhere around 6-3, 8-4. You know, so you're fighting really good top-level competition. And both these guys are doing that, but it's just a notch better for Adesanya. And then you look at the wins, it's the same thing. 1.94 ratio for Cannonier and 11.75 total fights. That's excellent. But then you go over here to Adesanya, it's like, shit, man, 3 ratio, 13.82 total fights. And then you see who these guys are losing to, and it's probably Cannonier who's actually losing to the better competition because the ratio is 0.3 better than Adesanya, and the total fights is only like 2.6 less. So they're both fighting and beating and losing to the top-notch competition. But obviously, Adesanya not only has cleaned out the 185-pound division, but he went up to try to get that 205-pound belt. And it was a good fight. He was winning that fight early. So, yeah, this is going to be this line. I mean, I guess you got to bet Cannonier or nobody. I don't really see how you lay minus 400 here. I get it. Victor really nailed that line, that minus 260 to just take the submission out of the equation. I think that's parlayable. I think that's a solid bet. But now that you're talking minus 400, Brady, boy, it's really hard to endorse that.
Yeah, and that sadly, that KO decision's no longer there. That got smashed, and rightfully, I mean, it made no sense. I mean, there was like such a huge difference. I mean, it made no sense there. So that's gone. Let's read some final comments here. Let's see here. Desmond saying, thanks for the in-depth and free content. As always, Uncle Weezy's right about the props on Cannonier there disrespectfully. A Cannonier by knockout was plus 550. I mean, do you think Cannonier can win a decision? Cannonier by decision is plus 950. I mean, with the judging, if it goes to decision, if nothing's going on with the crappy judging, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, and if Cannonier goes out there and, you know, like, and turns into, like, puts on his singlet and his D1 Cannonier and gets takedowns and shit, yeah, he could win a decision. But that's why the numbers are important. is, sometimes they can be deceiving, but there's very little deceiving about 13 fights and 4 takedown attempts. I mean, you're not fighting Damian Maia every fight, right? You would think there'd be some fights where you're like, you know what, I've got the advantage on the ground here. I'm gonna go to my wrestling, but you don't see Adesanya or Cannonier doing that. It makes it a little more predictable to break down. And this is gonna be a striking fight, and the numbers tell you that it's gonna be hard for Cannonier to win minutes on the feet here.
Absolutely. Mr. D saying facts, Weezy, the judging criteria is clear, but the judges themselves are so inconsistent. Yeah, it's clear. I mean, damage over control seems to be what it should be, but in some fights they're judging the damage, in some fights they're judging the control, like Demopoulos 30-27 against Jin Fry. I don't know what fight they're watching, and I didn't even have a bet on the fight, but that was nuts. And there were some other ones like the Arman Sarukian fight as well. Just some weird decisions as of late, man.
Yeah, and that Sarukian fight was close. It was a close fight, but I mean, you eye it up and you're like, man, really? Gamrot on all 3? Unanimous decision, huh? Wow. Okay. Because I thought, Arman won those first 2 rounds pretty clearly. And then from there, I just don't think that anybody was winning clearly. I mean, it was a great fight. They were really well matched. But yeah, the TJ Brown Shah Yulan fight, dude. I mean, like, dude, if Shah Yulan won that fight, then Holly Holm beat Vieira. Right. I mean, come on. But like you say, let's just admit it. We don't know what the judges are looking at. The judges are looking at the bags with the dollar sign on them that gets brought to them by the person that's paying them off. That's what they look at. The rest of us are there holding tickets, hoping that the mob is on the same side we are.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the only explanation at this point, right? Like some of these decisions, man. I mean, it's just crazy how like everybody thinks this and then just 3 people or 1 person, Salamato, or they think the other thing. Like it's just, and they're right there. They're right in front of all the action. Like you'd think they get their shit together. Cole saying co-main event to start round 5 -250. Not a bad parlay piece. I like that. Both guys are very durable. Holloway never been knocked out, absorbing almost 2,000 strikes. And Holloway not much of a finisher. And Volkanovski's only been knocked out once. So I don't hate that as a parlay piece, if anything. See what else we got there. Brandon saying I'm parlaying the O'Malley over 1.5 and Jim Miller fight doesn't go. Hopefully DK gives plus money. I think that's a really good look there.
I agree.
Let's see here. Dan saying great work. Weezy and Brady, good luck everyone. Yam bag that like button, a like on the way out, boys. Appreciate that, Dan, as always. Cole saying in some fights the judges take a break to go on their phone. Yeah, there's one fight like last year where the judges were like one of the judges were caught like on their phone during the fight.
Yeah, Rogan was like, this guy is still on his phone, and like the guy was just over and was
what are you doing? It makes like what they should never be allowed to judge a fight again. Like
it's not only it's bad enough that the judge is watching his phone, but then those of us who are counting on Joe Rogan to give us commentary, he can't even watch the fight because he's looking over at the judge who's looking at his phone and commentating on that.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, it's a mess, man. But that's why we love the sport. We love the unpredictability. Anything can happen. But Weezy, we went through the tail of the tape. We went through the experience, the finish stats, the grappling stats, the striking stats, the strength of schedule. And I think we are both leaning Adesanya. As far as picking a method, man, it's really close. I'm going to say for my best bet, like nothing's sticking out with these props. I don't like the fight goes, it doesn't go. I don't like any of these props. I think if I was forced to bet something, it would be that Adesanya -365 as a parlay piece, but I don't know if I'll be getting there unless I can find something that I really like to parlay with. Like Cole said in the chat, I don't mind that Volkanovski Holloway, like the overs as a parlay piece.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But yeah, Adesanya is the pick. Adesanya parlay piece, but that's really the only way I attack it. Weezy, what is your final pick and what is your best bet for this main event here?
Yeah, I just see it really difficult to find a way for Cannonier to win minutes here. Adesanya, not a savage finisher up at this level. He's been very cautious, very, very good at winning minutes and points. So I'm going to just pick Adesanya by decision. It's a little bit plus money. I think that would be the way that I would play this one. And I also kind of like the fight goes to decision here. I like the fact that 40% of 5-round middleweight fights do see the scorecards, and that's not bad because Adesanya is seeing the scorecards more often than not, and Cannonier went to the scorecards in his only 5-round fight. So that would probably be the way I'd play it. I'd play the over, and I'd play Israel Adesanya by decision.
Sounds good to me. So yeah, we did it, Weezy. I'll let you head out of here. Weezy will be on the Die Hard MMA podcast in about 18 minutes. So Weezy, let them know about that a little bit and where they can find you as well.
Yeah, so you can find me on Pub Sports Radio starting in about 18 minutes with our guy Clint doing the Die Hard MMA podcast. We're going to break down all 12 of these fights on the UFC 276 card. And then tomorrow night, you can find me on my channel, Uncle Weezy. I'll be doing my full card breakdown called Just the Tip. Give you a greasy 4-leg parlay at the end and finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. On Thursday, you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel again for Probability with my guy Brady. And I'll probably be doing either like an Ask Weezy on my channel or a Balls Deep breakdown somewhere later on in the week on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. But after the Die Hard tonight, I'm going to be wiped out and I'm not doing any more content tonight. So, but you can check me out tomorrow on my channel. You can check me out tonight on Pub Sports Radio starting in about 20 minutes. And yeah, we got to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 276. I'm ready to eat.
Let's do it. I'm ready as well. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown video should be out sometime tomorrow. Just got everything done. You just got to record it at this point. So, yeah, guys, go check out Uncle Weezy on the Die Hard podcast in 15 minutes and leave a like on your way out. Subscribe, all the good stuff, and best of luck for UFC 276.